Good morning. It's a good morning. Every day is a good morning. Flash of news, yeah. It's funny, but it's good. So what I want to talk about today is listening. And I want to touch on two kinds of listening and the problem that we have with that and why we have it. So first kind of listening is obviously the listening to a conversation, to a person that we're speaking to, yeah? And I believe we don't get the whole message very often just because we're not paying attention, not just to the words that that person is uttering, but the whole thing that involves, it is involved in conversation. It's not just words, it's their emotion, it's everything they do, how they act, how they move, the tone of voice and so on and so forth. We get to notice these things pretty well as human beings already. But I believe, we have so much problems hearing people what they say because we're not involved, because we're, distracted by so many other things, our own conversation, and we listen to ourselves and we're judging and we're making conclusions and we're going haywire ourselves, and our body, our brain and everything is already distracted by other things. So I think we lose a lot of messages, and why I started thinking about that is because how we young people or younger people listen to older people's advices. They usually conclude before they even finish that it's rubbish just because they're old and so on and so forth. And I believe we go throughout life acting like that and listening like that. And that's why, it takes us like 5, 10 or 20 years or even more sometimes to hear a message from somebody who's been trying to say that same thing for so long and we couldn't understand and couldn't hear it. Some is obviously, experience and so on and so forth, but if we would learn to listen properly when we are young, we could get to that conclusion a lot quicker. Especially with the messages that older people share with us, or the wisdom that they share with us about life or anything really. It takes us so long to realize it, I believe, because we're not really paying attention. And that's goes the same with every type of conversation. It's, at work, with your colleagues, with anybody really. We are not listening as we should, and we're distracted by so many things at the same time because we live in this, fast-paced society where everything has to be fast, and it's going too fast for our own, understanding. So the first one is really try to first a message to myself, yeah, obviously. Get involved with all the emotions and everything when you're listening to people, so you can get the message as it is supposed to be taken. And the second problem that we have, or the second thing that I'd like to touch on, is listening to ourselves. We are obviously all, having conversation with ourselves most of the time. We're talking to ourselves, and we usually pay attention to the bad things. We already know that, yeah. That we're, talking to ourselves. But I'm not gonna try to. I don't want to talk about that at the moment. I want to focus more on listening to ourselves when it comes to our gut feeling, when it comes to our intuition, when it comes to, we very often get a message from our body or from, something pops up in our head and says, okay, this is not good for you, or this is good for you. And we're not going after that. We're not listening to it just because we're so bombarded by all kinds of other messages and ideas from other people, how things should be or how we should react in a certain situation and so on and so forth. And we're not listening to that comes from within us, and it's, it's good for us. It's usually a good message. And this whole, journey of mine and the channel is, more about getting to know ourselves, getting to be in ourselves, and to, listen properly to what comes from within us to help us, make proper decisions. Because that very often, the way that we listen, affects a lot of things in our life, even though we might not think about it. But if you take some time and start thinking about it, that the way that we listen to things, to ourselves, to our intuition, to everything that's happening around us, the nature, affects us profoundly if we let it. And we have to, I believe, in this fast-paced society, start listening a little bit more deeply, a little bit more with, in getting involved with all the emotions, with our bodies, with everything that we have, because this, one believe, will yield a lot broader experience of life, and cooler for that matter, of course. So the message for today would be, first for me, and then for you, if you get anything out of it, is really listen. Start listening. Start listening to your intuition. Start listening to people and to conversations. And I believe that will do you good. Will do us good. Will do us all good. And I wish you all a very thumbs up day.